Step outside.
All right. As we say back on the reservation, we say Ya'at-o. And that's a little vernacular there that says, hey, I'm home. But really, the way we say it is Ya'at-e. And that's on the reservation. And when you're Navajo off the reservation, you say Ya'at-e. So there's all these different ways of saying hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for being with us this evening. A very good evening. And we'd like to always acknowledge our traditional caretakers and ancestors of these lands. We always want to acknowledge the Pueblos all around us. We are on their land, and we want to acknowledge the ancestors from your lands. We want to acknowledge the caretakers from your lands because we want these lands to stay here for our future generations. As always, Indigenous Ways is dedicated to bridging cultural exchange with people globally. And this month is a very special month as we are nationally acknowledging Native American Heritage Month. And we're excited to have all the presenters that we've had from April 1st to now. And you can go to our website and our Facebook page. We post 2 presenters a day for this whole month to honor Native American Heritage Month, as all of our presenters have blessed us with so much knowledge, oral storytelling, traditional stories coming from their ancestors that we cannot find in books or in schools. So this is a very sacred platform we're on tonight. Real quick, I just wanted to let you know that this blanket here, I keep saying, is a big surprise. Well, the surprise is out of the bag. We are getting ready to do a raffle next Wednesday, and somebody is going to win this beautiful blanket, which ironically represents water to us because Black Mountain is without running water. There's no running water on Black Mountain. So this blanket is to raise funds to take water up to Black Mountain any way we can. It doesn't matter if it's cans, bottles, cases, barrels, water catchments, eventually pipes, a well to be dug. That's the big goal. So we're all headed in that direction. And you know what? We really believe that's going to happen. It's going to happen. Put your prayers out there, you guys. Black Mountain is going to have water for sure. We just don't know when. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. So tonight is a very special night. We have our beautiful, beautiful sister, Christina Bueno, and she hails and zooms in from New York City. Oh my God, can you believe that? The big buildings and the bright lights. And oh man, I just want to go to New York City. Well, guess what? As close as we're going to get to New York City tonight is Christina Bueno. Everybody, let's give it up for Christina Bueno. Woo!
Good evening, folks. And Tosh, do I just go ahead and start now? I believe
Yes,
so.
ma'am. That's it.
Then hi, everyone. Let me just fix my hearing aid. Give me just a second to do that. Everyone, good evening. Good to see you all here. Let me ask how you're all doing. I know I can't see your faces. I do apologize for that. But I do want to thank Tosh and Elena for inviting me to be here tonight with all of you, and for me to be able to share my experiences in being involved with resilience, rising in resilience here in New York City. My name is Christina Bueno, and this is my sign name, C and a B. That's my sign name here. So any deaf individuals that are here watching tonight can see me and they'll know my sign name. And likewise, people who can hear know that my name is Christina. And like mentioned, I am here right in the middle of New York City. I'm in an area known as Spanish Harlem. And where I'm at is a very awesome place. And the reason I say that is because there have been several places among the city where I've been able to participate with the Rise and Resist movement. Now, throughout the city, when Trump's term started, it became more and more popular right after he became president because people were afraid with what type of repercussions his administration would bring. And so we realized that we'd have to put up a fight for human rights. And we know that we have lots of opportunity here because New York City is just so crowded and full of so many people. I also want to talk about what rising means. Rising means that we rise up and fight for our human rights and fight for them against any violations against those human rights. So here in New York City, it's heavily populated by Democrats. And also, I'd like to quote RGB and her beliefs in anti-abortion and how by having those abortion rights possibly hindered by the government, then that would mean that our bodies would be under control by the government, which is not something that any of us wants. We want to have our autonomy and not be made to feel like less of a human being. And so that's what's guided us is the women's uprising and speaking up for our human rights and dictating that we make decisions on what's good for our own selves. So in the past, long before current times, women were respected. We were considered important as our role was that of the earth. We would give birth just like Mother Earth does. And Mother Earth is respected for all humans to walk on her womb. We all walk on our Mother Earth, and Mother Earth sustains our lives and gives us lives. And in the past, we had that honor and we had that respect as women. And it seems things have changed, unfortunately, nowadays, and that is no longer occurring. And women aren't held in that regard like they used to be in the past. And so this is the reason we need to rise and resist. And I'd like to say that life is beautiful, just like a rose. But we do have to remember that as beautiful as roses are, they also have thorns. And the symbolism in that is that there is no place that's perfect, despite how beautiful the world may be. So we rise and resist against the thorns of life. And those thorns are examples of forces that push against us and force us to be resilient. Like facing darkness, tragedy, trauma, family difficulties, finance issues, family matters. But it seems like none of those issues really matter anymore. But they do matter. And we are fighting and we are being resilient as we rise. And first of all, I'd also like to share an experience of myself being a part of rising and being resilient here in New York City. After Trump became president and was inaugurated, we started having marches here. And we had something called the Women's March. And that was a moment in time where women across the United States came together to march side by side, marching and marching together. And it was extremely powerful. I had never experienced a historical moment like that. And it was after Trump came into power as president. And the reason for it is because people had a sense that he would impose fascism. And people wanted to rise and be resilient against that and didn't want to go back in time to when things were different. The community here wanted to move forward and not what the president wanted. So that's why those marches came together. And also, with Trump's presence, we felt our human rights were threatened. And so that's why we rose with such a resilience to fight and defend our human rights. And we know that every human has the right to pursue happiness and the right to their preferences and to determine what those are individually for themselves, for yourself. We know that every one of us have different opinions, and sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, sometimes we agree to disagree. There are two ends of the political spectrum in this country, Republican and Democrat, and everyone has their own mind within both groups. So after we rose and showed our resilience, I noticed that Republicans became fearful, and I saw that they were reacting out of fear. And that fear, I feel, is coming from a place where they fear socialism, because Republicans did make comments and assertions that Democrats are socialist. And I must respond to that and say that in my eyes, both groups have socialism. And I think anywhere that humanity exists, there's going to be a socialist component because we all want equal rights. We want equal rights to medicine. We want equal rights to economics, to employment. We want equal rights regardless of skin color. And that is something that I see that is intrinsic to our society, to our humanity. And so for Republicans to do that, I believe Trump caused a divide between both political parties in that sense. So the months went by and we protested throughout the country, not just here in New York. And then we had an incident in our country that really highlighted the Black Lives Matter issue. And that incident was the death of George Floyd. And it demonstrated that in times past where there were no video and people made complaints against police officers and weren't believed, can now be contrasted against people that do have cell phones because we have that technology now. And that racism that has existed for years with the police departments is now able to be videotaped. And I pray that there is a resolution to racism. But it's doubtful because we know that is a human condition that might remain and persist. So the goal is for us as humans to change society and change that power and privilege component. Historically, police departments originated as white departments and had power and authority over others. So when it came to color of skin, then the police had the power to be able to incarcerate folks. And historically, that's how the police department has functioned. It has oppressed the Black community and the community of color, which includes people who are brown, Native American folks as well. Because we don't look like the mainstream. Because of our dark skin, we stand out and look different. Also, I'd like to say that there are police officers of color, and sometimes those police officers of color can have negative behavior. And the reason is because they work with white police officers. And this is something I experienced myself personally. It's about when I was 15 years old. I was involved. I was part of the hood. I lived in California, in Los Angeles. And it was a Hispanic or Mexican police officer. And he was having a good rapport with us. We were communicating back and forth to the point where we were listening to the police officer, and the officer was listening to us back. And at some point along the conversation, a white police officer arrived, and instantly that Hispanic police officer's attitude changed. And I think the reason it changed is because he had to fit in with his partner. And if his white partner was harassing brown people, then he had to fit into that system. And quite often, when police officers of color have a partner or are part of a group of white police officers, then they have to coalesce or meld into and follow what those white officers are doing. Now, what happened to me is I was hit with a club on my head in that incident, which was very shocking as I didn't understand why things were happening. I can look back now and see that it was a power struggle because I was trying to get into our place, and all I needed was for the officers to calm down, and I was going to make my way to where I was headed, but I was hit on the head while being pushed. And we were all, of course, brown people trying to make our way into a building. And so I see that there is that type of racism that continues to exist even within police departments when it comes to officers of color. And I also want to show now at this point a picture of the defund the police movement that we had here in our Rise and Resiliency movement. So let me get that on the screen, and there it is. Thank you. So with the defund the police, what that means, it doesn't mean that we're going to remove all financing and all monies from the police department and that there's going to be no funding. That's not what that means. What that does mean is that the budgeting for the police department is grossly overdone to where it leaves out any finances for youth activities. It leaves out any funding for healthcare. It leaves out funding for mental health aspects in the community. And so those areas are emptied so that those budgets can head to the police department. But we see that police behavior historically and in the recent past is out of line and disproportionate with the services that the community needs. So, yes, the police department does need to be funded, but the budgeting is not at the amount that it's supposed to be because there's these other areas that I was just mentioned that are being neglected, and crime is still continuing to be out of hand, and there are gaps in these other areas in the community. So if we can fill those gaps in the community with funding, with programs, then that would balance out the health of the community, that would balance out the health of the neighborhood, and that would balance out society in general. And so what I'd like to talk about next now is BLM, Black Lives Matter. And I'd like to do a screen share. Okay, we've gone through the pictures. So what you saw in the pictures was the BLM protest that I was involved with. And I wish I could show you all the pictures that I took, but I can only show just a couple because of time. So there was a group there of us that participated in the Black Lives Matter movement and protests in our area. And we had Deaf Lives Matters there as well, because they do. Sometimes deaf individuals are shot by police officers because they can't hear. And so it became a case where Deaf Lives Matter as well there. And the Black Lives Matter protest had sign language interpreters present every day. Every day. There was a section called Washington Square Park where they had an interpreter. And there they had a posting with the times of where the interpreter was. And then there was another location in Brooklyn, and they had an interpreter there as well. And then here in Manhattan, where I'm at specifically, they also had sign language interpreters. So I must say that the access that was provided for the sign language community was just awesome. And I see that Black Lives Matter recognizes that deaf individuals are human too. And we want to be a part of the protest, and we want to be a part of rising and being resilient. And without that access provided, we wouldn't have any understanding or any knowledge of what the protests are about and what people are saying and where the movement is headed. So having the interpreters present there at the Black Lives Matters movement helped me realize that we need to fight for our rights as well. And there are a lot of deaf people who sit back and just feel like no one's going to pay attention or listen. But seeing the interpreters provided there, I realized that, yes, we need to also fight for our rights and continue in that movement for deaf rights as well. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have access to information via a sign language interpreter, even at something like a protest. I do have to say that this year has been unique, very unique, in the fact that a lot of individuals in the deaf community have been exposed to and have learned and are awakening. They had been in the shadows or like a shell to say, in their shells for many years, being passive and accepting the awful experiences. But now that we see that people are standing up and they're rising and they're being resilient, then we too must join in and we must rise and be resilient as well. Now, what's most important for the deaf community and the Black Lives Matter community is the mutual support we can offer each other, which allows people to see that unity in action being manifest by individuals. And when one human sees that unity being manifest, then we can take that and apply and help our community, the deaf community as well. We can have those hearing community members fight with us and fight on our side for our community, for our rights as well. And I really think that those protests had a huge impact on our communities here. And perhaps if it wasn't for Trump becoming president, we might have a longer road to travel, much more information to navigate, much more to learn. But after Trump became the president, we saw a lot of people standing up against oppression. For example, Trump reversed something that we, the deaf, and other individuals with disabilities, we had filed a grievance against stores or businesses for discrimination. Now, when a grievance is filed, those businesses are supposed to respond within 90 days to that grievance. And Trump changed that, and he reversed that mandate and made it a 6-month response. So he took it from a 90-day response to a 180-day response. So a business now has a right to hold on to an ADA complaint for half a year, which means that we have to put up with that treatment for half a year. We're human beings. We have feelings. Can you imagine the emotions we'll experience at injustice for 6 months at a time? And so there's that added oppression from the president again just not caring about how that decision would impact individuals and their feelings. And I think that that was one of the things that woke the deaf community up, because it was happening right before our eyes, which allowed us to stand up and say no against that. And so to this day, much more people, deaf individuals included, have participated in the elections and in the voting process. I know that many more deaf people voted this year because of the horrendous actions they saw that President Trump was taking. And a lot of individuals didn't like those actions. And despite that, I must say there are a lot of deaf individuals who are also Republican. That is the case. But it was a great reminder for us to continue to vote and to hold on to those voting rights dearly. And now, let me just see where I am along my presentation. I think I was going to share an image or a picture. Actually, I want to talk about an organization here in New York called the Gays Against Guns, GAG. Yeah, I almost said it wrong. Guns, Gays Against Guns. And if we can show the image, please. Okay, and then if we can show my next image.
2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000.
So I hope you saw in those images, it was the Gays Against Guns. I'll just abbreviate as GAG or GAG. Now, the GAG is an organization that came together after a mass shooting. And we saw the deaths of many individuals. So, Gays Against Guns decided to hold an event where everyone dressed in white robes. And we held a placard that represented the individuals that had been killed by mass shooters. And they marched along during, like, for example, the Gay Pride Parade and other events. In one of the images, you saw there was a line of people dressed in white, and this was a march during the protest. And then you saw another one where people were standing in different spots dressed in white. Again, they were representing those who have passed away. And one was held at a library. And then there was another protest against UPS, because I believe it was 20% that UPS was discounting, or 27%. I don't remember if it was 20 or 27%, but they were offering a discount for deliveries on guns. And so the community got together and said that that was unacceptable, because we felt that encouraged people to go ahead and purchase more guns via the mail and have them delivered, which we found very off-putting. And that was where we came together and we fought. And we said, this has to stop. You cannot give a discount to the NRA, specifically the National Rifle Association. And I'll abbreviate that as the NRA. And the NRA are typically Republican and Trump supporters. So we dressed up to fight, to stand up, to resist, and fight against that reduction in delivery fees for gun purchases. Because, of course, there's a high number of AK-47 rifles, which are semi-automatic weapons, which can kill people, many people, rapidly in a small moment. And so we also asked for harsher universal background checks on gun purchases. And that was something that the community wanted. So I'm not sure if you saw in one of the images, there was a heart on the floor. Elena, is it possible we can show that image one more time? The one with the heart drawn out in red on the floor? Okay, so I am the fourth person back up against the wall. Oh, okay. Well, as you can see, there was a heart shape on the ground, and that represented the Pulse shooting. And Pulse is a bar in Florida where a gunman attacked, and I believe 19 individuals lost their lives. I don't remember exactly the number. And I might be wrong. It might be 47 people. But that day was the first anniversary, was the 1 year anniversary of their passing. And GAG decided to honor those individuals by going to DC to meet with the Senator of Texas. And I believe it was Senator Combrin was his name. So a group of us from New York went to Washington, D.C., and we were a bunch of gaggers, right? Because we were gays against guns. And I really love that community and that group of people. So we all headed down there to D.C. We went to the senator's office. And one of our members showed a giant-sized card to the senator. And that card showed how many people lost their lives and we asked how many more people will die beyond these. And the senator seemed flustered. He seemed to look away. He didn't want to read that card that had the individuals and the number of individuals who passed on it. And to me, it looked like perhaps he was embarrassed or felt bad for the individuals who lost loved ones and family members. And then after that, we made our way to the Capitol. We went to Capitol Hill in D.C., and that's where we laid out that red cloth with the heart as a symbolism of the lives lost. And it was a very powerful moment for that 1 year anniversary after the shooting at the Pulse Entertainment Bar in Florida. Now, there were some protesters that wouldn't leave that location, and some were arrested, some were not arrested. I did not want to be arrested, so I made my way out. I work as an educator, as a teacher, and I was very fearful of that ruining my record. Well, not so much ruining my record, but I just wasn't ready for those consequences at that time. And so after that event, we came out, we waited for our friends that were arrested. Once they came out of jail, then we all headed back as a group to New York. And it was about an hour or two after we had met the senator. And then, surprisingly enough, the shooting in Las Vegas happened. And that was extremely shocking to me. And I had hoped that in that moment, the senator learned a lesson of some sort. Maybe our meeting him in his office and informing him with what we did, and then a few hours later, having hundreds of people gunned down in Las Vegas, I hope that made the impact of what we were fighting for. Again, automatic semi-rifles, we just need to reduce their numbers. We want increased security and background checks on gun purchases like that. And so that was what happened there, and I'll never forget that moment. So now let me move on to my last topic. And I also want to talk, before I show you my last set of images, democracy is what we strive for. And I learned that that word was created. And by the way, I learned this from Sarah Young Bear. She had a message on Facebook talking about how the word democracy was created. And apparently that was, I believe, by the Iroquois tribe. And Sarah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, that word was formed before European settlers arrived on this land. And when the European settlers arrived, they borrowed that word, and they used the word democracy in their fight for their rights against the oppression from England. and broke away and, of course, formed this country and are here today. And so that word democracy originated from a Native American tribe on this land, on this continent. And excuse my pets here, my dogs here. I could just imagine that during colonialism, it just was not fun. And it just wasn't a joke back then. I'm sure it was quite an oppressive time. And if we think things are bad now, you can just imagine back then where people were murdered, houses were set on fire. There was genocide to the Native Americans. Europeans were here trying to colonize the country, and that's the unfortunate history that we have to contend with. I also want to talk a little bit about myself and my duo. Friend, who we were performers together, Francisca, and I do want to talk about us last. I want to share the experiences first and then end on a positive note. So we had met in the past, but we re-met at El Museo del Barrio. And that's a local museum here on 5th Avenue, right down the street. I can walk out of my house and turn a corner, and I'm there. I live about a mile from that museum. It's really, really close by. And I learned how to sing along to Trilingual Songs. And I say trilingual because we were singing in English, ASL, and Spanish. So my friend, Francisca, signed. So she also spoke English, Spanish, and ASL. And I knew some C sign. So the irony of it. But there's a lot between ASL and C signs that'll go unsaid right now. But my friend Francisca helped me practice these songs. One of the songs was Power to the People, written by John Lennon. And in practicing that song, I learned something. Power to the people, I thought to myself. And I remember when I was a kid watching television and protests on TV, and people would pump their fist to John Lennon's music, to his song about power to the people. And so I realized it was my time in life where I can fight for power. I can go out and I can protest and I can rise and I can be resilient to the aim of supporting human rights. And I want to show a little bit about the El Museo del Barrio. I got some pictures to do a screen share of what that museum looks like. So that picture you just saw, one of them said Storefront Museum. And boy, I was so wrong. I thought it was El Museo del Barrio Museum. It's not. It's the Storefront Museum. But what we did is we did a show at that museum. And then we had our first public exhibit outdoors. And we did a quick show called Flush Trump. And so that was the name of our show. It was called Flush Trump. And we performed to a group of random strangers that were just walking by on the street. And they stopped to watch our show. And at the same time we did our outdoor show, we were teaching them signs. We were saying, Flush Trump, Flush Trump. I'm the best. I'm conceited. I'm this, I'm that, were some of the lyrics in the show. And before of our start of that show, and this was again right after the museum, Francisca and I realized that we both have a last name that starts with the same letter. Hers was Benitez and mine was Bueno. So we both had B last names and we made a joke of it. We thought, oh, how funny. And so the next time we met, Francisca, she said, hey, why don't we start a show called the B&B Show? And she said, I was just thinking about our last name and just realized that we're B&B and we could have the B&B Show. And I thought it was hilariously funny and was very willing. And I was like, let's do it. We'll have our own show. We'll have the B&B Show. Now, we did go to a lot of places and the show was growing. We went to the House of Justice Club here in New York. We also performed at the Black Deaf Advocates of New York. We did a show for them. And we did the ASL Slam with Douglas Ridloff. Douglas is a deaf individual who hosts that ASL Slam. And so Francisca and I were both a part of that. And just recently, we did the show at the House of Justice as well, talking about voting and how important voting is. And we encouraged in that show the deaf community to get out and get their vote in so that we could help the folks in Georgia to go ahead and change and turn blue. And that was the last show that we were a part of. And things were starting to grow. And that momentum was starting to build. And I must say, I think I've run out of time at this point, but I do want to thank you both, Elena and Tosh, for the extreme honor of having me here so that I can share my story with all of you. Thank you as well also for the wonderful ASL interpreters. And I'd like to thank Donna Aceto. Donna sent me the pictures of the human beings in white cloths. She's the one that had sent that. So I just want to thank her and give her credit for those pictures. And also Francisca Benitez too, my duo performer who also sent me the pictures of us. So I want to thank you both. And I want to thank everyone for being here tonight and watching me share my story and allowing me to share my story with you all.
Woohoo! Thank you so much for that, Christina, and the insight of you coming to self fruition and realization through the power of the people and your perspective and what it has meant for you and seeing it through deaf eyes. So thank you for sharing that with us this evening in the Indigenous Ways Wisdom Circle. If you're here in Zoom, welcome, or if you're in any of our social medias, we're so glad you're with us. Just before I invite people to come in, or if you're in social media, you can percolate some wonderful questions or comments you might want to ask Christine. This is what is coming up. So next week, can you believe it? We're in December, which means it's coming towards the end of the year. We have the wonderful Jennifer Gorman, who is Navajo, who will be in the Wisdom Circle. We absolutely love Jennifer. She has been the MC in a lot of the festivals we've been doing, working with remote communities, particularly in Titseli and Chinle, where we've done. So she's going to be sharing her wisdoms and her perspectives. She born and bred in Chinle, Arizona. So please tune in to that next Wednesday. And also, above me is our website, IndigenousWays.org. In the next 48 hours, this video of Christina will be available. So you can share that with your friends. Also, if you're on social media, you can see that any time of the wisdoms that she has shared. Also, at our website, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. And then below me, flicking across the page, you'll see the umpteenth number of social media pages that we have. Please like any of those pages, particularly our YouTube pages, where you'll see where over 60 presenters and performers are in there, like Christina. This is possible, and I want to give homage to our sponsors who have made this possible, supporting all our presenters and our ASL interpreters, making access available to all. So a huge shout out to the National Endowments of the Arts, Westaff Cares, New Mexico Arts, New Mexico Humanities Council, National Endowments of Humanities. And we also want to give a shout out to our board and also those amazing individual donors who have given to make this possible, of doing the Indigenous Ways virtual events, so we can keep connected during this extraordinary time we're all going through. As explained to you before, Tash, who started the session, was talking about this fabulous quilt, which is behind me. We've got until the end of November, where what will happen next Wednesday, we're going to raffle that. Right now, there have been 35 people who have purchased tickets. That means you've got 1 of 35 chances of winning it. So if you want to be in or support what this is going to, which is getting permanent water solution on Black Mountain, that's what this is about. And the person who made the quilt, she's actually a quilter, Julie Kaufman, she is passionate about water, and her whole thing was the education about Black Mountain, about remote areas, particularly on Turtle Island, that don't have water, that need to have running water. So that's what this is about, and if you can support that, please, we'd love you to. And then thank you to all those that have been able to donate, whether that be supporting our Black Mountain runs that we've been doing, or this wonderful platform that we're in here. We've got PayPal, there's Venmo, there's also on our website at Donate, there's places there you can donate to, and also our wonderful snail mail if you're into that. And then lastly, you know, we know today is Wednesday. We're going, tomorrow is a big day for a lot of people. Happy Harvest Day. It's a day of really giving thanks. Not only that we had the opportunity to open our eyes this morning and what is today going to be, but in this gathering and circle. So if you celebrate giving thanks, wonderful. That's what we have been doing, and our extended thanks to each and every one of you of having these circles, these sacred circles, since the 1st of April, whether that be the Wisdom Circle that we're in or the concert series. Anyway, we are a nonprofit, and every Tuesday, the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving is Giving Tuesday. We're going to be a part of that. If you want to donate to us, please do, or in the chat box and all the social media, there's a link there that you can put on your social media page and get all your friends to come and support us. Anyway, I have spoken enough. Now it's that time. If you're in Zoom and you want to come in and have a good chin wag to Christina, or just want to kind of weigh up with some things, we're going to encourage you to turn your cameras on and get yourselves nicely sorted. Richard, it's so wonderful to see you. And as people are coming in, if you're on social media, if you'd like to, if you want to put a comment in the chat box and we can share it there, please do. Hey, Richard, because you were first on, Do you want to weigh up with something, keeping in mind that we are a nonprofit and the sacredness of all our funding and things like that? Rich, what do you have to say?
Well, I first want to ask, I understand next Saturday is going to be Mr. Miller, one of my all-time favorite singers. Can I mail a check to you at your Santa Fe, New Mexico address?
Absolutely. And
Because
we will
I'm not going to
pass that
be
on to
able to
Bill.
do it. Next Saturday is a Vacha, and she's a force to deal with, and I do the poetry that day.
Oh,
So I'm going to send
amazing.
you a check. It may be a week or so because I don't go out that much to a post office, but I want Bill to get some money for this.
You've
And I
got
might
it.
start sending some money your way too. But I got people up here I have to support too. So anyway, I just want to say thank you, Christina, for your words. I, of course, am old enough to remember all the things you talked about. You know, I live in San Francisco, and my favorite community in San Francisco is the gay community. They've changed. Unfortunately, it's become more of a white picket fence gay community. They've lost a lot of their oomph. But I remember the day when street theater was here in San Francisco, and they went on the buses and they let people know what the fight was all about. And they didn't only just talk about their gay struggle; they talked about everybody's struggle. And that's what I loved about the gay community. And so I'm glad you told those stories because the gay community all over the country is always been there. And you spoke of things as they were, and they really haven't changed. But I was never really hopeful for this country because it's an empire. But things that have been happening, I don't know. I'm sort of hoping that things are going to sort of coalesce and people start thinking, start realizing, start understanding what these struggles are about. When I joined the Native struggle, a Native person said to me, "Join our struggle." Yes, I did. I will be with you in the struggle till I die. And if I have any writing that's worth any good, it'll go past me. So that's what we have to do. We're only here for so long, but let's find a way that we can make an impact, whether it's through our writings, our music, whatever it is, through our politics, whatever it is. This is the seventh generation, and I don't say that lightly because everybody talks about the seventh generation, but it's true. We are now all part of that seventh generation, and we see the things that are going on. We've seen what happened at the pipeline, and these things are powerful. So everybody in this room, don't think for a moment you don't have power. You got power, and let's use it. And as our sister said, rise.
Right on. We love you so much, Richard. Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful wisdom. Dr. Carla Garcia Fernandez, we're going to go to you if you'd like to share something with Christina. It's great to see you.
Yes, hi. First of all, let me say, Christina, hello, good to see you. This is Christina. Hi, Carla. Thank you so much for sharing. You know, your comments got me deep into thought. I've done some ethnic studies, and in terms of high school walkouts, that's in comparison. They had that in Los Angeles, California. They had some high school walkouts like that, some protests as well, which were powerful. And sometimes people view protests as negative, and inherently they're not negative. A protest is speaking up and fighting for improvement for the community that needs that, improvement for the future generations. And so when we think of our ancestors, they did the same thing. They protested for us. And so we have to carry on their work, if that makes sense. So, Christina, that's what I got from your message. I really appreciate you sharing that. And now I'm looking forward to your duo story. I want to learn more about you and your performances.
Thank
This
you
is
very
Christina.
much.
Thank you, Carla. I'll have to share some information. I'll do a Facebook post about Francisca and I's performance. Carla says, yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Carla. I really appreciate that. Is there someone in our squares that would like to share some words with Christina, or just make a comment on what they're percolating of things that might have been cracked open. TV.
This is Terry. Yes. Christina, I want to extend my gratitude to you. You really poured it out from deep inside. I felt your spirit flutter towards us from the screen with your amazing stories and experiences, the collection of experiences that you have. And it's like what Carla said, what Dr. Fernandez said. We all have our ancestors, and we need to take inspiration from their work and their activities. Christina, thank you for your awesome presentation. I was very impressed with what you stated tonight, and I'm happy to have been here with you tonight. You're very passionate. Thank you.
Thank you, TV. It's
Thank you.
beautiful to see you. Anyone else would like to share some wonderful words with the beautiful Christina? While people are thinking, I'm just going to go to social media. Christina Frank BZ or Z, I've forgotten how you say that last letter of the alphabet. Frank says in capital letters, BB. So I guess that's a inside thing with you two. And he's also got icons. He just posted now, Christina.
That's my duo performance, BB, the BB show. Yes.
Great. Hi, Frank. Frank also says, Christina, you are an inspiration. Lorna Barreras just says, hey, November's almost over. It is unbelievable that this valuable platform, which was started 6 months ago, blessings to everyone. Homer Hubble says, Nijonie, and translated from Navajo, is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Anyone in the squares would like to say anything? There's Oleta who's just come through. Oleta, would you like to? It's beautiful to see you. Do you want to share anything while you're here?
I'd like to say and send my love. I love you all. Christina says, me too. Love you too, Arleta. Thank you. And Arleta here is Christina Bueno. Good evening. Thank you. Christina says, thank you. And this is Arleta. I was very fascinated by your presentation and by what you shared with us. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. And Christina says, I'm very glad to see you here, Arleta. Yeah, I miss you. I miss you all, says Arleta. I miss you all.
Wonderful.
This is Tasha's voice.
Tosh, your sound turned off.
Oh, is it on
It's
now?
back. It's back.
Okay.
It's back. It's back.
Arleta, as soon as we can, we'll be sure to come back and see you in Greasewood.
Okay, so is there anyone else in our Zoom who would like to share? Now is the opportunity. Otherwise, we're going to go into the
Arleta
next
says, I'm at home.
portion.
Saying I'm staying home.
Yeah,
Any-
Arleta says, I'm here at home.
Perfect. It's great to see you. All right, well, it's really that time of the evening where we get to wind up. Tomorrow is a huge day, a harvest day. Thanksgiving, if you're into it. Tasha and I thought, well, because we're in isolation, as Christina was talking about also, we're going to beam in at 6 o'clock, same channel, same time tomorrow. If you want to do a circle, and we're just going to check in of things that we're grateful of today. So, for example, for IndigenousWays, we are so grateful to each and every one of you for making this platform for what it is. Our incredible presenters like Christina tonight, sharing not only her experiences, but what she's taken in and how that has really motivated her, as Carla was talking about, to speak up. You know, in the circle that we've been doing, or the circles, whether that be through the concert series, through the music, or the wisdom circles of hearing the wisdoms from others as through time. Sometimes it's been about reconciliation of their own hurts, their own past, to really come to these incredible wisdoms and nuggets, as Richard calls them. So that's one thing we're grateful of. Another thing that Indigenous Ways is grateful of is the $40,000 that we've been able to raise through this platform to take and help the families up in Black Mountain, 5 relief runs. We could not have done that without any of you. And for me, my personal gratitude for today, Creator, for whatever reason, gave me an opportunity to open my eyes this morning. And so whatever unfolded throughout the day was a miracle. Not only seeing all of you here tonight and those people that are on the social media or listening to this or watching the recording of this, but we had the opportunity to really take in these amazing words from Christina. But so if you want to join us Thursday, you're feeling a bit alone, please come in. It's just going to be a short check-in. Just make sure everyone's okay. Same time, same channel.
Will
If you
do.
don't know where that is, it's IndigenousWays.org in the events page.
I
and
want to
just click on
come.
there. Of course you do. We want to see you there. But
It's
you know what? Before we close out, I want to give a huge, big thank you usually we have 2 interpreters, but tonight we've had 1. So please give it up for Crescenciando Garcia for making access available for all.
I'd like to say real quick, this is Tasha's voice. Our other interpreter had an emergency, so Chris did the whole show. So we love you, Chris, man. You rock, brother. He's been working all day. So let's give Chris a break, everybody. We love you. We'll see you tomorrow.
And just
tomorrow is it the same letters
Same
to get in?
channel.
Same address.
we
6
want to
o'clock.
hear
Okay.
your gratitude list there,
Thank
Richard.
you,
So
I'll be
Sister
there.
Terry.
tune in.
Thank
I'll
you.
be there. It's the only
Yes,
thing
we'll
I
see
got
you there,
planned.
please.
Love
So
you guys.
just before we go, so thank you, Chris.
Love, love,
All
love.
those people that have come in, thank you to each and every one of you for your sacred time. But most importantly for tonight, let's give it up for Christina Bueno.
Touch the earth, touch the earth, touch the earth.